Hello and welcome to another episode of Pop Life, brought to you by This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to this channel, welcome. So glad to have you with us. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, or one of our very valued patrons, well, all right. So glad to have you guys with us. This is going to be a fun show. I'm excited. We have Bert Cooper on the day. Me and Bert have been talking about this for a while, and also have some good news. Finally have a launch date. All of the TIR video essays and episode 1 of Kayfabe will be premiering Tuesday, February 4th on Means TV. Hella stoked. You guys can finally see what's taken so long. Episode 1. Can't say the entire vision, but episode 1. And let me see if I can pull this up. Yes. You can use this discount code on the screen to get 20% off a monthly or yearly subscription at Means TV. This is Revolution, all caps. It's working. It's up. Like I said, all the video essays that we've done on this channel will be going up. They said all at once. And I sent them episode 1 of Kayfabe, and they were like, dude, this is really good. I think that was literally the response. So I'm excited for you guys to see it and hear what you have to say about it. I already sent it to the backers. So it's exciting. But today, we're talking about one of my favorite genres of music, one that I participated in my youth, hip hop. And has it lost its way? I don't think so. Maybe you guys think so. But let's get into it. Also, I did try to put the most offensive images on that thumbnail to see what you guys have to say about that. But recently, comments made by emerging hip-hop producer Emerald Beats have sparked debate within the hip-hop community. During an interview with On the Radar, Beats stated that he does not enjoy sampling soul music. He then escalated his remarks by dissing boom bap, a style deeply associated with hip-hop 1990s golden era. He called it garbage. Shit out of here. Boom bap, a signature sound of acts like DJ Premier, Pete Rock, and the RZA, remain a defining, in the hip hop, on the air of hip hop, that many fans and artists believe represents the genre at its artistic peak. This reverence for the past explains why artists such as Kendrick Lamar are celebrated across generations. For those unfamiliar with Emerald Beats, one might ask, who the fuck is Emerald Beats? And why do we give a shit about who Emerald Beats is? Well, he is a young, white, that has a lot to do with the hate. He's a young white producer, best known for crafting NLE Choppa's viral hit, Slut Me Out. Bert Cooper also agreed to sing the hook of Slut Me Out as he comes on the show. Within the hip hop, the term producer can have varied meanings, but in this context, it primarily refers to the individual who creates the instrumental track. Beats has found success by making music that adheres to mainstream sonic trends, often relying on stock sounds and royalty-free samples. His work, while commercially viable, is largely indistinguishable from much of today's digital-first production styles. While Emerald Beats has received significant criticism for his comments, the backlash is in some ways misplaced. He's a young artist operating within an industry where innovation often clashes with tradition. Every generation of musicians challenges the dominant aesthetic preferences of the previous one. Just as not every rock musician reveres the Beatles, it is unreasonable to expect every young hip-hop producer to pay homage to foundational sounds like boom bap, or even soul sampling. However, one troubling aspect of the criticism directed at Beats is the accusation that his stance reflects a broader erasure of hip hop's black cultural roots. Some artists have argued that hip hop has lost its way by allowing too much outside influence, often coded language for white participation.
We coming for you, nigga.
Yep. But hip hop, from its inception, has been a hybrid art form, borrowing from a vast array of cultural influences. Rooted in the experiences of Black and brown youth in 1970s New York, it incorporated elements from funk, jazz, Latin rhythms, and even rock. Its evolution has always been shaped by cross-cultural exchange. The genre itself remains an open and adaptive space, even for those who produce beats using Apple stock sounds. Furthermore, the idea that hip hop serves as a singular, definitive soundtrack to Black American life oversimplifies its origins and impact. The genre has always contained multitudes, lyrically, sonically, and politically. From the early days of breaking, graffiti, and DJing, hip hop has been a space for creative experimentation that transcended rigid racial or class boundaries. Figures like Tony Basil, who was pop locking alongside pioneers like Rerun, you know, the guy that dropped his massive tape deck when trying to bootleg a Doobie Brothers concert, that Rerun, illustrate the genre's long history of multicultural participation. With this in mind, today we must ask, has hip hop truly lost its way, or is it simply evolving in ways that challenge our expectations? To break this down, I figured, it'd be really fun if we could have different, I don't want to say generations, but kind of eras of hip hop in the conversation. So starting it off, he's the man with the plan. I couldn't think of anything else that rhymes with that, as his name is not very rhymable. Please welcome my co-host, Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings to Jason Miles. So, has hip hop lost its way?
Pascal was the first beatboxer.
Oh.
And now let's bring on Bert Cooper, who again said he was going to come on the show singing the hook to NLE Choppa's viral sensation. Over 20 million views on YouTube. Slut Me Out 1. Please welcome Bert Cooper.
I'm really curious. Do you know what the hook to Slut Me Out is? 1, 2, or 3?
I saw the 1 for 1 because I wanted to hear what the dude's music sounded like. And I was like, sure.
Because it's just Slut Me Out. That's the hook.
Nope, that's not part of it because he tells you what you have to do to slut him out. Those are not part.
That's not the hook.
That is the hook because it's repeated. The Gooch thing.
I mean, we also Slut Me Out.
Oh, we've already crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah. He says, "Spit on my what's it? Spit on my face while you fuck me."
Yeah. The pleasantries of intercourse.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
yeah.
I
didn't actually mind the song at all. Actually,
I mean, I like a lot of his songs. "Slut Me Out" is also just intellectually interesting for me because he occupies a similar space in the long trajectory of like inner city hood niggas rapping, but to go from him asking a girl to spit in his face while he's getting fucked and having his gooch getting licked and all that shit, and comparing that to fucking DMX, who says he won't even eat off the plate. These guys operate to the same fan base, but at one point this dude's like a mafioso, like, I don't eat pussy, period. Yeah. And then the dude's like, yeah, spit in my face, like my gooch, I'm gonna tear it up. Like, so that is an interesting evolution.
Does he add lines that says he's holding his feet like a baby, getting his diaper changed while the gooch licking is going on?
I haven't listened to his entire discography, but I don't think he said the position if he gets his asshole eaten. I'm assuming he probably does because he's pretty open about that shit.
We are off to a roaring start today, boy.
I mean, Sexy Red was one of his one of the first people that or what's it? Annalie Chopper was one of the first people to give her a feature.
Bet he was. Someone's calling you the Rizzler of TIR, Bert.
The Rizzler.
Yeah. But seriously, what do you think of those comments, Pascal? Because even the early days of hip hop doesn't really necessarily have a lot of soul samples.
You know, the thing that this conversation strikes me most interesting. Have you guys seen the relatively recent controversy between Fat Joe, Lord Jamar, and the FBA, Foundational Black American Community? Are you guys familiar with that discourse?
No, because Lord Jamar is I've never seen a man that I used to be so scared of as youth because I thought he was the most serious fucking Nation of Islam.
Because he only knows how to talk with a fucking snarl, like he's always
right. Yeah, like I just felt like Lord Jamar just punched women, like just anyone that he didn't like that day, he just punched them. And now I just see him start the most petty arguments, like any other TMZ person.
I would like to hear I can make an assumption that it's about Fat Joe's Puerto Ricanness saying nigga all the time.
Fat Joe was making an assertion about the role of Latinos and Puerto Ricans, Latinos particularly, in the origins of hip hop. And he made a comment about FBA, Foundational Black Americans, which is I would not conflate FBA with all Black American people. It's a particular movement started by individuals online, and he basically used some pejorative terms to refer to them. And many people were hating on Fat Joe, saying that he had talked down to Black Americans. He called them broke. He called FBA broke, so on and so forth. But this was about trying to say who has the right to claim sovereignty over hip-hop's origins. And for me, as someone who was old enough to see the beginnings of the music form, like these are guys who don't want to admit that there were certain early actors in hip-hop who came from West Indian backgrounds. And I'm like, some of y'all are not from New York. You realize like every third Black person you run into in New York is from the Caribbean. Like, what are you talking about?
All the Negroes on this show.
I was like, what are you talking about? People like from like Scott LaRock to Biggie Smalls. And this is something that had been settled by people like KRS-One who acknowledged, like, listen, there was a very diverse pool of people. A lot of people don't realize that there were a lot of Rick Rubin, who was Jewish, was involved early on in hip hop.
He's super important.
There were a very diverse coterie of individuals involved in the early development of this music form, particularly from the 70s to its golden era in the 80s. And I find it interesting that there is this kind of racial nativism, this kind of revanchist Black nativism that really has developed in online spaces that tries to claim that anything that comes out of Black creative spaces in America has to be exclusively Black American with influence of anything else. And anything else that claims any influence is fraud or fraudulent or just by a bunch of what they like to call quote unquote tethers, people coming in. And I'm like, so was Harry Belafonte when he was working with Martin Luther King, was he a tether?
Ooh.
What are you talking about? It's really insulting to the participation of a community. And one of the things that was most known about Black Americans is that they were open to the participation of Black people diasporically to their struggles, to their cultural struggles, their artistic struggles, and their legal struggles and political struggles in America. But the racial nativism that has recently developed in the last few years from some of these movements is ahistorical, number one. And number two, it typifies this narrow argument about who has the right to claim hip hop. Hip hop is very diverse. I mean, it's very broad and it appeals to a lot of people. I would argue that many of the people who create hip hop want to appeal to the people who are more willing to buy it. And since sales have been mostly of white people going back for years, that ain't black folk.
What say you, Bert Cooper?
I think the generous interpretation for what folks like, I mean, I don't really like Lord Jamar, but like, let's say folks who listen to him and buy their, same Africanology books at the swap meet. I think the kind of missing element here is that if you're just looking at demographic background, if you're just looking at ancestry and ethnicity, hip hop has always had people from a lot of different backgrounds involved. However, we have this cultural element. What do they dress like? What do they talk like? What is the threshold requirements for how they present themselves to be allowed to be in this space? And a lot of times the expectation was that whatever your background is, when you come to the hip hop space, even if you are part of the African diaspora or whatever, when you come into the hip hop space, you are going to adopt mostly things associated with a Black American aesthetic in terms of the slang, dress, style, shit that you probably can't do in your, say, Nigerian home and then come over here. There was this kind of, I don't want to call it code switching. It was just this understanding that once you enter this space, the cultural norms are the ones that Black Americans are comfortable with. And there was that just in dress, in style and whatnot. And as you progress in that scene, you can take from your home culture, you can take beats from Nigeria, from Jamaica, from any part of the Caribbean, and you can infuse it, but it's kind of a little bit more quiet in how you do it. And a lot of your fan base, especially the people who aren't reading the album notes, they're just going to kind of assume that you were just pulling from other Black shit. They're not necessarily going to look you up on Wikipedia and understand that, you were raised in, a half Trinidadian, half Black household, and that's where these sounds are coming from, which plays into the illusion that the audience gets to keep, which is this is all Black American shit. When I see the way people are dressed, how they're standing, the slang they use in interviews with hip hop folks, they sound like Black Americans. And that was kind of the stance. Whenever you have people suggest, though, that, how do I put it? Whenever you have people tell a version of the story that leaves out that kind of cultural performance that was expected of people who come into this space, which is easier to see with white rappers. Like, Eminem stayed in a do-rag all throughout the early part of his career. His whole presentation had to conform to the Black American aesthetic and kind of show that paying it forward. The moment you get folks like Fat Joe, when they tell the story, and they don't include that kind of part, that expectation that you pay homage to Black American aesthetic to be in this space. I think that's what gets people a bit squirrely, even if they don't have the words for it. And people are also, seeing more folks like, say, Post Malone, who just have the sound, but they don't do any of kind of the Black aesthetic. They're not really paying homage to it. They're not doing these things that might be considered like.
But does one have to pay homage? As a young person coming up, we were always trying to differentiate ourselves from what came before. Because we weren't part of those crews, right? Because that's how every industry works, and the music industry is no different. So it's like if you're friends with so and so gets a deal, there's a good chance if you just shut up and wait your turn, then you'll get your deal too if you're part of the so-and-so crew. And go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think you have to pay homage. I think with us right here analyzing the history and the changes, you have to acknowledge that used to be the expectation. There's no way Post Malone would have been able to come through back in the day and kind of do the same thing without donning some of the stuff that Eminem had to don to be a part of it. He would have had to go through those steps. Now you're not really required to do that, and some people are upset about it and other people are not.
Someone says, what makes paying homage different from blackface? I would say a lot.
So, I mean, again, it depends on what you mean by the term, but I would say for a lot of the FBA folks, a lot of folks who are into the idea of Black American ethnicity, all that, they would say that there is maybe not blackface, but there is a cosplay element, there is a pageantry element. Some quotes from like John Boyega are really famous for this, where he got, questioned about the prominence of Black British folk playing these Black American roles and always being the people that white studios go to play these thugged out Black roles. So well known in our communities that like King Peele has a whole sketch about it, which is
hilarious.
And Boyega is just kind of like, he goes all in on the Pan-Africanism. We're all Black. We're all going through this. But in terms of his Netflix deal, in terms of him saying on, in print that there needs to be something that produces specifically African originating movies, African country movies, all of that stuff. This online community hears that same shit. And it's like, okay, so you have an ethnicity and you have a specific location and a culture in the diaspora that needs to be represented in film. But our shit, that's just part of the world Black heritage. And some people get offended at that.
What do you think, Pascal? I mean, do you think, because hip hop has changed quite a bit. There was a time where in the early days, like I'm talking like when I'm like a very small child and Pascal is walking around with those tight fitting Lee jeans on and a ducktail. But in those days, not too many white people were listening to hip hop. But now it's just an extremely popular music over the last 30 years. Hip hop and country are kind of like the most popular genres of music that are around. So of course you're going to have non-Black people in these genres, and they're probably going to be mimicking what they see coming out of it. And is that necessarily a bad thing, especially when we talk about places like Asia?
Asia has a very live hip hop scene, man, particularly in Japan.
Yeah, but you also have, for the most part, what looks like blackface. They try to get their hair nappy. The best they can do is kind of like Bert, but some of them you see they can get it those real.
You mean like Australian academics competing in the Olympics for breakdancing?
No, I mean more like, because that's different. That's like, hey, there's a chance I can go to the Olympics, get some free money. This isn't going to the Olympics and getting free money. This is, oh, we really dig what you guys are doing and we want to copy it.
Oh, straight up, that's true. I mean, a friend of mine went to Japan. He said, "Yo, there's so many folks in Japan who have permed kinky hair." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yo, that's the thing in Japan. Is like folks like to go get their hair done to have it like kinked out like Black folk." I was like, "Wow, that's interesting." But I mean, my position on this kind of stuff is that as long as we're true to the origins of where these things come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that crying about cultural appropriation is not something I find particularly kind of valuable, because in the end, culture is made to be appropriated. You want your culture to be spread. You want your culture to be assumed by people so they can value it. Now, when it comes to giving credit, of course we should give credit to the originators of the art form. But are we saying that we only want the same kind of people to be listening to hip hop and appreciating it that were in the early origins of the music? And that for us to have a diverse audience listening to it or contributing to it aesthetically is somehow a violation of the normative way the music should be listened to? I mean, listen, I'm not one of those folks who thinks that popular culture or the culture industry is that sacrosanct anyway. It needs to be. Frankly, it's the culture industry. I think part of the problem is that, frankly, we've vested so much in the culture industry in the post-civil rights era as a result of lacking of having any real politics.
But that's the TIR kind of logo that you come in the door with, like the Kool-Aid man on your first appearance, Pascal, is that we are victorious in the culture war. And in that culture war hegemony, I guess you could say, this black power illusion has to loom large in hip hop, where it's always looked at as this genre of music that from its inception was always about something more. It was always a voice of the unheard. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case out of music that really comes out of disco.
Thank you. Say it again. Say it again for the people in the back with your chest.
I mean, I would throw out there, like, part of why you have this panel that not panel, but the way you have it cut up the way you do is because there are eras in hip hop, and the one that kind of lingered that begins around late 80s, 90s and whatnot is just this kind of brute reporting about what's happening in the hood. And on the structural side, there's real changes. Like, I'm in LA, South LA, where Karen Bass comes from. Part of the reason why she got involved in politics was because when she was growing up in this very same area that's going to be gang ridden, that's going to be hit by the crack epidemic and all of the other things, when she was growing up there, it was a multiracial working class neighborhood that functioned fairly well. And her generation are the ones who are going to be making these first hip hop tracks in the 70s and for part of the 80s. But the people who come up after her, that is like not their neighborhood. It's not really their experience. And so when they're just using hip hop sounds and all of these things to just describe what's around them, it's got a completely different purpose. And it's kind of just like, I don't know how to put it. You're just documenting horrible shit. And at this point, you can find almost every old head now when they were younger, whether you're talking about somebody who's no longer with us, like Tupac or Biggie, or somebody like, Redman being interviewed at the time and people just asking, like, how come there doesn't seem to be a message in your music? How come there doesn't seem to be a message? Why do you mention all these negative things? Why do you talk about all this bad shit? Why this? Why that? Why doesn't it have some of those elements that you used to see in other forms of black music that had crossed over, whether it was like R&B or disco or many of these things that had at least some element of optimism or positivity? Why is this music just, this shit's trash, I have enemies all around me, I'm going to fuck up my enemies, and also I'm going to get paid, I'm going to get the fuck out of here? Why is that all there is? And so I just think it's important for the very same reason that you put the three of us here, to note that hip hop has served different, visions over time.
Yeah, like any other genre of music, man. It's seeing the comments from the kid, circling back to what this show really is about, is me watching that video of that kid, and I couldn't stop laughing. Because I think it was Anthony Fantano has a video about the kid where he just rips into the kid. Everybody's ripping into the kid because he doesn't want to use soul samples or whatever. And I don't care. And no one should care.
Can I say real quick, like, we've had that controversy like 5 times, but with like black rappers.
Yeah.
I'm
better than Tupac and Biggie.
You even sent me some of the shit. You got pissed at Lil Yachty for saying he hadn't heard some shit.
Yeah.
You were upset about that.
Yeah.
Vince Staples said that he hadn't really listened to the golden era of hip hop. Like, his friends started rapping, so he just hopped on at that point.
Yeah, I didn't believe that at all. I thought that was a lie.
I mean,
total lie. Vince Staples is cool, but he's full of shit. You got to, everything he says, I have to sit there and go, well, okay, this is what you really are trying to say.
I guess what I mean is I'm used to this experience where, like, if I listen to other people talk about me and my generation, apparently every once a week after church, we would get sat down and we would be told the entire story of black music, of Black history, of Black struggle,
Uh-huh.
and then we go out there. And only when a white person puts a mic in front of me. And I know that you have your opinions about like Lil Yachty and all this stuff, but like for me, and
well, first and foremost, you have to talk about, okay, well, when are you born? Right? That's the very important part. When are you born?
yeah.
Are you born in a barn? Do you live like Tarzan, where you've been cut off from popular culture? Let me finish. Let me finish. Have you been cut off from popular culture? That, let's say you grow up and your parents listen to the radio because you're small and terrestrial radio is still a thing because you're not born after 2008. So there's a radio in your car, and the radio's been playing the same songs for like the last 40 years. You live in Los Angeles. That shit hasn't changed much. I was up there a couple weeks ago listening to you people's radio. Hasn't changed that much. So what I'm saying is the fact that I've never heard of this before. I don't know if I believe you've never heard everything, but I'm sure there's things you haven't heard. Right? It's one thing to be like, I've never heard Lords of the Underground. I'll give you that.
What I mean to say is that if somebody says that they haven't heard that where I'm from, I'm not sitting there like, oh, you have a photographic memory, nigga, and you know that these notes have never entered your ears, and that's what the fuck you're saying to me right now? What you mean is that you've never listened to it enough for it to be a part of your conscious repertoire of lyrics that you could say.
Then you can say that. You don't have to act like, but there's the thing, you're ignoring the fact that it's cool to be rude.
It's also cool to just admit when you're ignorant.
But one thing we gotta realize.
Well, me.
I realized this recently listening to some urban radio. There is urban radio that still plays Black music that's not hip hop, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, a lot of the urban radio that we have out there is not playing golden era of hip hop. I'm sure you've seen these videos. Have you seen these videos of young kids in their 20s who listen to 80s hip hop and they're like, the first time I hear X Clan, or the first time I hear BDP, or the first time, and they're like, yo, I never heard this before. I don't think those kids are being disingenuous. I think that there is a really lack of clear commercial thoroughfares out there for that generation of music, unless you're listening to specific paid, radio stations on like Sirius Radio.
Yeah.
You're not really getting access to that period of music. And I do think there's a lot of kids who really, they just don't know. And what they think is hip hop is Sexy Red and Glorilla and making.
But if you're a certain age, that's going to be what hip hop is for you because you probably grew up with it. And when you're listening to music I
also want to just throw out the tech thing. Like, I don't know what like the situation was with your kids, Jason, but like Discman comes out when I'm like 12, and so by the time I'm like 15. Really forming all those connections with music and shit like that. I don't listen to what my parents listen on the radio. I have a Discman in my baggy ass pocket. I'm listening to a CD player. And then 8 years after me, you're listening to an iPod. Like, kids are not listening to what their parents listen to. That dies just like a little bit before me.
Well, that dies when kids get to be a certain age where they can just get their own stuff, right? And now kids can get their own stuff relatively early. And look, most old people listen to the same shit for the last 20 years. People always say, what new thing are you listening to? I don't know. I'm re-listening to Steely Dan songs. Go fuck yourself. Pascal, you're way too close to the screen right now, bro.
I'm scaring you.
Other than bickering, I do want to I like Pascal's more substantive point where the music, there was a period of time where you did have to, or at least I would argue that you had to go through these steps and show that you were affiliated with Black American culture as its particular youth expressed itself to participate in the music. That has shifted a lot now to where hip hop and rap is just part of the musical elements out there, like any other style of music, like blues, like R&B, like rock, like country, like salsa, reggaeton, where you can sample some of those elements and make your own thing. And you're not, in a lot of places like Japan, required to go through as many steps to show that you're affiliated with Black American culture, or that you know the history, or that you're aware of it. And you're also not expected to do that for most other musical genres. But I don't know how many Black Americans actually feel this way, what I'm going to say next. I don't know how many of them are upset about it, but I'll say commentators. A lot of the commentators are just aware of this history of, Black people participating in the thing. It gets cool. There's crossover, there's cross-pollination. To Pascal's point, Black people, at least one of the things that I think is cool about Black Americans, is that they did let people from elsewhere come, play, participate, do all that shit. But you're going to get outpaced and outsold, because a lot of times, say the white folks that you're allowing in, they have access to all of this white culture that you might not have grown up close with. They have a keen eye by being in both places to know, oh, that will sell to white people, that won't, that will, that won't. You teach them the culture, they go out there, they outsell you. They have access to all the white people. Chinese folks have access to all the Chinese people. Japanese folks have access to all the Japanese people. And you're just always going to get beat out. And then when you actually look at, rap or hip hop as being like music from poor folks, especially in this technology age where it's like, yeah, it's super easy to get, sound sampling and put stuff, music video on YouTube and whatnot, but you still kind of need an iPhone. So the chances of poor folks consistently competing with the people who have more money, just when you lay it all out, it just starts looking like you have more money than me, you have a larger fan base than me, you're becoming a hybrid because you know my culture and yours, but you're going to be able to leverage that to sell to a much larger audience than me that I can't pick out the shit for. And if you're just an ordinary human, the way I am, probably once you get successful enough, you're not going to be stopping your fans to be like, hey, we need to talk about where this music comes from first. So that
there's not enough Black people here buying these meet and greets.
Yeah. And before we party at this festival, let's just stop and think about where this music comes from. Like, that shit ain't going to happen. So
no one cares as long as people are coming out to see you. I used to listen to, and it's anecdotal, I know, but I lived in a place where people rehearsed. I got to hear people's dreams every night. And when the rappers would come in and practice, was a lot of fun. Because in between their, like, practicing their set or even setting up, there was always the chatter about how dope the show was going to be. And never was there talk about cultural appropriation or who was going to be at said show. Because nobody really cares. When you're actually trying to do it, and you're trying to do it seriously, where you actually want to make a few dollars, the last thing you really give a shit about is like the percentage of colored folks that are coming up to see you.
I don't think the artists do care. I think to what you guys are both saying is like, I think artists have always been intellectually promiscuous. I think they've taken inspiration from other places all the time. And also getting Pascal's point, or what he said about like the pop culture industry, I think every once in a while an artist gets salty or they play a game, or some of them do genuinely care about this appropriation stuff, but most of the people who are fucking in it, they're just trying to create shit. They're being inspired from every place. They're just trying to make shit. That's what they want to do. But I was watching the documentary on John Williams and his composition a little while ago. That's only been out, I guess it came out last year.
Can you send that to me? Because that sounds fucking awesome.
It is really fucking awesome. And this is the dude who does Jaws, and he does Star Wars.
John Williams is a fucking hero. Yeah.
Does Jurassic Park, and he's just crushing it. But he starts as a jazz. His dad was a jazz drummer. He grew up on jazz music, and a lot of people that they bring into the documentary who are huge John Williams fans, they talk about how the first thing they loved about him is that they could tell like this was a jazz man, this was a jazz pianist, and he was getting that jazz composition into a lot of this music before he ever gets famous. Now, if you watch that and you also watch the Miles Davis documentary or read this one long essay on like American Cool, then you know at one point Miles Davis, you know, he's in France and he composes live just on his horn a soundtrack to a whole French film, just watching the scenes as a run through with like no prep. He does edit it later, but he's adding jazz composition to these films. But he's not going to be allowed to do that back in America because he's black. And so you have all of this is just one story. I know you guys both know this shit inside and out, but you have these little key points where it's like John Williams has this whole illustrious career that includes in part putting jazz music into movies. Miles Davis has no access to that career because of racism. And there's so many things like this, and there's a bunch of commentators who, rightly or wrongly, they don't care that maybe black artists don't care, but because they see the pop culture industry as so important to the status of black people or black Americans, as many black Americans only leverage point for getting shit done or having people care or having people respect the humanity of black people, they don't want to risk black people's or black Americans' influence in hip hop. I don't know if it's useful for them to hold on to it as tightly as they do, but I understand why they think losing it is or that they're at constant risk of losing it and having it just go the way of jazz, rock, insert your thing.
So what you're saying is that because the culture industry is the only way that black people are able to exert power in American society today, and the hip hop is the last bastion of black music where black people have some sway, that is the main reason why their attempt to cling to its origin story exists, because they don't want to go the way of jazz or rock and roll or anything else, where now it's become racially ambiguous in terms of what the origins are.
Yeah, I would say that everything you presented, Pascal, is I would say that is not a hypothesis that I'm defending, but that is what I believe they hold to be true. I believe that's a big part of why you basically can't have, like, you go to HBO and you have Ta-Nehisi Coates doing his documentary. You have all these heavy hitters of black intellectual thought and political leadership in this documentary, and it's produced by Oprah. But of course, it has to have a hip hop soundtrack. They consider this to be part of the leverage point. I don't personally love that political strategy. I mean, you already know my history about pop.
We do realize that a lot of these Negroes are absolute race hustlers, and that none of that is going to translate into anything that's going to improve the life of the majority of black people at all. And that they're not doing it because they even care about the music. They care about their ability to leverage their position to talk about the music.
I would say that the most clear-headed and potentially sociopathic of the race grifters know exactly what you've described. But I also think a lot of the people doing this are not that self-aware, and they're caught in a situation where the only thing that really, they're at a status in life where all that's really being kept from them is the symbolic shit, the psychological wages of being America's favored group, of being the ones who are thought highly of, all that prestige shit. That's the last thing that they are, or they feel are being denied, because their material conditions are well taken care of. And as far as they're concerned, that is where they need to focus. They see that as the most pressing issue. And so they're very concerned with losing hip hop as this amazing thing that black people have given the world that elevates, the standing of black people. They like keeping it as something, the way white racists claim this whole Western canon as evidence of white people's greatness. These folks like being able to keep hip hop as one of the things that prove the greatness of black people.
Because they can't do it with jazz anymore.
What happened to jazz? Jazz is too its origins are too ambiguous.
When jazz became the background music to your life and not dangerous, then it's not cool anymore. Whatever becomes not dangerous. Like there was a time when funk music was like dangerous, right? And then funk kind of morphs into into disco. Remember we talked to Jeremiah about that because disco becomes sophisticated funk, right? It's just like, well, those other people that are doing it with, their balls hang out, they're kind of crazy. But look, we have suits on. We're chic. Even our name, it's chic.
I mean, you have this picture of Lil Wayne right here. To exactly what you're naming. When you go on Lil Wayne's Wikipedia page, they mention the GPA he had in community college. And they only do that because they are insecure about the fact that he might just be an artist. They need him to be some sort of savant who chose rap as his preferred form.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look up most other artists, they're not going to tell me what this dude's GPA was in community college.
Maybe Will Smith. You hear about it. You used to hear about his GPA all the time.
Yeah,
I think he got into MIT.
Another black artist.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? For a while, it used to be like hip hop was. It's almost like people forget what hip hop sounded like back in the day. Like I love people like when I first heard hip hop, it was all about community involvement. I was like, what the fuck were you listening to? Like seriously.
Not PSK.
Was it Parkside Killers? What is it again? Bert, those are your people. They're from Philly.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the first gangster rap song is out of Philly.
Interesting. I mean,
even Ice-T claimed, he goes, I bit the 6 a.m. beat from, what is the guy's name? Schoolie D.
Schoolie D.
From Schoolie D.
I mean, that's
Parkside Killers or something like that. Yeah.
That is one of the interesting elements of this for me about, hip hop, what's the word? Has it lost its way and all that is looks like he's super excited to show Jason his new hat.
Yeah. I have one similar in the living room.
I bet you do. I really bet you do. This idea of hip hop being this way for the unheard to get their voice out there. We're now at this point where they've been getting their voice out there through hip hop for a really, really long time because pop culture is ineffective as a way of changing, the material conditions of society. They're still broke. There's about as many broke people in each of these categories as there was back then. The population hasn't changed really. Mm-hmm. We've been hearing these stories for a really, really long time. It's out there and it's being reproduced in movies. We've extracted all of these stories of Black poverty in the deindustrialized, post-insert whatever hyphen you want era over and over and over again. So they're not new. In a way, they don't feel dangerous. It just feels part of what you know. But at the same time, I sent you these, clips and everything, Jason, like, niggas still get shot in Philly, and 5 got shot in LA just like the other week. So the reality still includes a lot of these elements, but it's just like at this point, you've been using this platform to tell this story for a very long time, and I don't know.
The whole thing. There's a lot of things that were going through my head when I saw that clip because I was also talking to I think all of us were talking like. Me, Pascal, Teray, and Cedric were talking about the Snoop thing, I think, in our text chat. And the Snoop thing was interesting to me because there used to be this thing called selling out. And you really hear it in the golden era of hip hop. You don't really hear it in the 80s because no one knows what selling out is because no one's done it.
I'm still waiting for my chance.
What'd you say? Can't wait for your chance to sell out. But there was this thing, I'm not going to sell out, right? And famously, Kurt Cobain is on the cover of, I think, Rolling Stone. And he's got a shirt on that says, corporate magazines suck. And for a lot of people, he's the greatest establishment figure ever. There's a lot of contradictions within that. You don't have to take those pictures. right? You're not contractually obligated to do those things. People like Prince left millions of dollars on the table by ending tour cycles and ending album cycles. And for those that don't know, when you back in the day, it's a little different now. When you released an album, record labels would promote you by sending you out on tour. And as that album hit certain plateaus, gold or platinum in another country, then you would then hit that country. Michael Jackson tours on Thriller for, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 years, because it just kept selling, right? Prince was doing something very similar with Purple Rain. You have a movie that's doing quite well, and you have a soundtrack that might be your best album that's doing quite well as also. And the label was like, okay, well, we have these tours in Europe for you and this, that. And he was like, no, I'm not going. Why? I have a new record. Everything is Raspberry Beret now.
I mean, he's a great thing for all of us, you know?
Right? But back to the whole, like, what is selling out? So there was this idea that there's this thing called selling out. And I'm like, well, you get to a certain level, I mean, I guess you're selling out. I don't know. What is selling out? And Snoop was very adamant 8 years ago about anyone performing for Donald Trump being kind of a jigaboo. He said, quote unquote, you're a jigaboo.
Yeah, that's the dictionary term.
And so 8 years ago, that was the prevailing opinion of Donald Trump. Now, he's looking at it very differently. Is it just him getting the bag? Because getting the bag has totally replaced the term selling out. Nobody sells out anymore. There's different terms people use, like, oh, you're a grifter. And you make some sort of pivot. But everybody wants to get the bag. No matter what you do, just get your bag. I understand you got to get your bag. Okay.
For me, growing up, and even still to a large degree, what I see, selling out had been reduced tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll stick to, my area of rap. Like, it had been reduced tremendously to where the only selling shit, put your face on a sneaker, get that fucking vitamin water, make movies, do whatever the fuck you're gonna do. The only time you're a sellout is if someone can really establish that what you're doing is making money off of fucking over black people. Unless they can make that really concrete, you weren't a sellout. And even within, like, Snoop Dogg's, like, ambit, I still see it as when Trump first came along, it wasn't just Snoop. There was a real hard line across a lot of people, a lot of black entertainers who were just like, yo, fuck Donald Trump. We're not going with him. We're also coming off of, like, Obama and everything. The alliances seemed really clear in that way. And you also saw a lot of, like, younger rappers in the process of kind of recanting earlier statements that they had made. People were coming at Lil Wayne for saying, like, he doesn't see racism anymore, really, because, like, everybody in his crowd is, this, that, and the third. A$AP Rocky had gotten called. Like, there were a lot of people who had to recant in front of 2010s, I'll say, racial, social justice principles. They had to go before that and say how, like, they get it, they see, and they're against Donald Trump. But that has really dwindled a lot. For a while, you and I were talking about how, like, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, all the old heads were feeling that way.
Yeah.
But for a lot of the, I'll go straight to my age. Kendrick Lamar has multiple times made fun of or called hypocrisy on, he uses the term woke. I know that doesn't mean that much to many people, but you know what he's getting at. And he's supposed to be, like, kind of, the street poet, the voice of the streets, the spirit, blah, blah, blah. And so he was coming at it. That sets, like, Snoop Dogg's going to see that shit. The other rappers see that shit. And there's just a lot of people like that where it's gotten to the point where, going with Trump or going with something more conservative or saying the shit that previously you would have only said in the barbershop, it's just not a death sentence to your blackness anymore.
I mean, what I'm saying is that do we know what Snoop's motivation was? I mean, was he doing it purely? Was it purely about the bag? Was it about the crypto, or did he have something else that he was trying to protect, or something he was trying to get done by doing this for Trump's little crypto party? I don't know if that was ever made clear. I know he made a statement after the fact talking about how he's still black and and everyone get their life together because his life together. I know he lost like 50,000 followers on Instagram or something.
I think he'll live. I've seen Snoop perform live. I was at Bottle Rock one year where Snoop and E40 went back to back on a second stage. They weren't on the main stage, they were on the second stage. There were so many people to see them that the food vendors complained. Every food vendor complained because they couldn't sell anything for an hour because so many people were there that they just couldn't even get food. Snoop is a thing. He is the king of nostalgia. He's released 1 million records that no one's heard, but everyone knows, bow wow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. That's all he needed.
I mean, he wouldn't have even had that mid-career high that kept him relevant without Pharrell. Decided to do a few tracks with
Pharrell did a lot for him.
I mean, a lot of people have. He's constantly been able to touch whatever's hot at the time.
Well,
I mean, there was a time when Master P was a really important thing, and Snoop was on that label.
What explains Snoop's ability to morph into this touchstone during the Olympics in France? How did that happen?
I think he's this awesome. This is just my opinion. I think he's an awesome caricature of what people want to imagine a certain inner city person is like. Because that album, in my opinion, unlike the previous gangster rap records where everybody was really menacing and NWA was always doing their press shoots with the bulletproof vest and Eazy-E's walking around with the AR-15, there was this menacing air. And if you know the story of NWA outside of the movie, they have a first record that doesn't really hit. It's the second record straight out of Compton that hits really hard. And then they become these street poets. And the third record, Niggas for Life, or EP, is horrible because that's the one that Dre isn't on. And it's just this kind of fake violence, right? That's what they're all about. By the time Snoop comes out, it's not really so much about the violence. Even the video for G Thing isn't a video that's going to spark fear in your heart, but it does seem like a cool life, right? Because LA ghettos don't look like New York tenement housing. There's palm trees, the sun shines, everybody's got 40s, and there's these old school cars, and big booty chicks are running around. It's lifestyle music. And what follows that is the G-Funk era, which is let's double down on the lifestyle music. Every day is a barbecue. We live in LA where it doesn't rain. So Snoop is kind of this avatar of hood life it's fun. He's a touchable gangster. DMX is not a touchable gangster. DMX is a porcupine. Snoop is a koala.
Snoop is a koala.
He's a koala. He did something with Martha Stewart.
He does a lot with Martha Stewart.
You know why? Because he's a koala. You know who couldn't do stuff with Martha Stewart? DMX. Hey, yo, bitch.
Damn it.
Hey, bitch.
Roll my weed.
Every recipe is just named after fucking Boomer.
Right? Like, there's rappers that don't work. Ice Cube doesn't work with Martha Stewart. He's got a grimace that doesn't go away. Right? There's kids out there this big. Like, everything is the same line from Anaconda with him. But when you look at Snoop, he seems fun. He's got a football league that's produced NFL talent.
For shizzle on this.
He's been with the same chick for 1 million years.
I mean, that is, how do I put it? People have written about this, but there's a long history of folks liking the wizened person from poverty the whole School of Hard Knocks shit, that goes back like several hundred years for us, where we would even make up caricatures, including like I forget his name. It's like Old Poe something, but he was like a poor white trash caricature that would say simple, almost Zen-like sayings in like 1800s newspapers. Snoop and people like that, like people, he's adjusted to the system. People like seeing that shit. This guy who grew up in this harsh setting and now he can chill with Martha Stewart. See, there's space for everybody in this fucking system. He's, you know, that's what people want to imagine, that like everyone can just play ball. You're right. Like DMX, I mean, DMX's whole existence is just kind of like testifies to like the way the system is for some people. Like they're fucked up from what happened to them. The system has fucked them up severely, and they can't just go, you know, go to the right school or be rich for a little while, and that will just fix all of their problems, because it just won't. Like,
I mean, DMX. Do you remember when DMX was trying to like come back?
yeah,
And I can't remember the woman. She's like that black woman that makes everybody feel bad. And she had like one of his kids on there, and this kid was like, "I don't think you love me." And then DMX was like, "Shut up, nigga." And then the lady was like, "Do you see what you're doing? Shut up, bitch." And then you started yelling at her. Like, there's no way DMX can do what Snoop could. Coolio can't do what Snoop could do. And he actually tried.
the thing, how do I put it? What I love about DMX and people like that who do make it in a way is like I mean, I would have loved for Earl Simmons to have like a better life than he did, you know, fucking addicted to drugs, constantly fucking up, all that shit. But it's like, have you read this dude's childhood? Do any of you know
Yeah.
who you're putting on this interview? This nigga got his front teeth knocked out by his mom with a broom handle. Like, he used to get beat with braided extension cords. Like, this is not a dude who's just going to be fixed by money. That's not how mental health works.
No. And Snoop is a dude that could. And I don't think it's a bad thing per se. I think what we're seeing with a guy like Snoop Dogg and his want to play for Donald Trump is a break in the pop culture world with the Black PMC. And that was, for me, the shocking moment, because Snoop played ball for so long with the Black PMC, even when they hated him. Like, let's remember, when he comes out, they're like, "You're public enemy number one."
Took a shot at Gayle King.
If you remember, he was dangerous for like 5 minutes. Right? There was a grunge saved him, right? Because it was like, let's talk about Kurt Cobain. We don't have to talk about this nigga anymore.
I mean,
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. Like in the broadest spectrum, it kind of feels like there's an overall messaging out there. I could be wrong about this, so you know, tell me I'm a fucking idiot. That's fine. I feel like a lot of the Democrats didn't really learn it, but a lot of other pop cultural figures did watch Trump. They know he's an entertainer, and they learned that a lot of these loyalties and alliances and things that they thought were necessary to have a career in pop culture aren't. You don't have to do any of it. Trump didn't have to do any of it. Democrats didn't really learn that lesson. They're still living in this world where, like, no, you have to. It's a pure popularity contest, and you have to be appealing to this many people, or else you're not going to win, and you have to worry about fence. Whereas Trump was just much more on the entertainment side, like when you and I were talking about Amanda Palmer and the 1,000 True Fans theory, which was also covered in like season 2 of The Boys. Like, a lot of people in pop culture have picked up on this. These alliances appealing to a certain political segment, appealing to the thought leaders in the New York Times, New Yorker, you don't really have to do it. And a lot of your audiences aren't reading that shit. They're not going to hold their feet to the fire. They don't give a fuck. And that's why Trump can have the career that he's had. And so for the people in music or elsewhere who see Trump as an entertainer and somebody who came from being on The Apprentice to winning this, they're like, oh shit, yeah, like I can say what I want. And for the most part, like the band of stuff I can't say that would actually hurt my career is way fucking smaller than I thought. And we're on the other side, just to really give this wraparound why I think this is a zeitgeist a lot more are seeing is like Louis C.K. had his comeback already. Shane Gillis had his comeback already. A lot of these people who vanished during like Me Too or when the social justice activism was really going hard, they are already back and their careers are fine and nothing fucking happened. And when you look up all of Dave Chappelle's most controversial stand-ups, the critic score is low, but they have 90+% audience ratings. So again, for any of the entertainers who are really looking at audience, engagement, analytics, their fucking bottom line, what they're finding out is like they don't have to care about a lot of the shit they used to have to care about to, you know, not sell out.
Do you think that's just symbolized by Trump? Because no, I think Donald Trump, look, Kim Kardashian showed us you can get concessions under Trump in a way you can't. Would you agree, Pascal? In a way you can't get with Biden, when she was like, I watched a documentary and there's this black woman that's been in prison. Mr. Trump, I'll let you see a titty if you let her out. Joe Biden's not letting anybody out. Wasn't letting anybody out. Just because you know him. Common, how many people does he really know in prison?
Biden was probably sending the letters to the wrong address. With thousands of pardon letters. He got like one of the numbers wrong. Right?
I can see that.
He was handwriting them. He worked so hard to get the address right.
I haven't pardoned Marcus Garvey, man. Dude, get it together.
Damn. Are you happy with that? Did you win a black prize because of that?
I didn't get anything in the mail.
Did you get your money back from when your ancestors paid for his crypto scam?
No. The Black Star Line did not send me any new checks.
Is that the reparations that black people really need? Is the reparations from other black people?
No. Was it Joe Biden is the one who made Juneteenth a holiday, right?
If I'm not mistaken. No, yes, that does happen. Wait.
It had to be Biden because it wasn't Trump.
We have to look that up.
Like, I'm a spoiled Californian, so I was getting off for that day anyway.
That's Bert. That's why I'm so confused on when it was a holiday.
I mean, nobody lets me celebrate it the way I want because I'd want to, like, you know, camp it up a bit. It's like, guess I'm eating chicken and watermelon all day, but nobody would find that funny.
Leonard Peltier got sent home.
Yeah, Joe Biden did that. But that kind of shocked me. I figured he let Mumia out too since he was on a roll.
No, Mumia got accused of shooting a cop. So
Peltier shot a federal agent, allegedly.
Yeah, a Fed allegedly shot a Fed. That's true.
I mean, both of them aren't in there because they fucking jaywalked, man.
To your point, Jason, no, I don't think it's just Trump. And I think that's part of why you have the whole kayfabe documentary that you have, is that I think there's a lot of people. Trump is just one of the people who knowingly or unknowingly capitalized on it the most, but just he's one of these people who realize like entertainers have more freedom to do shit that might be harmful or counterproductive politically and not lose their fan base. And I think, yeah, Kim Kardashian, there's other people you could point out where like they got a ton of fucking leeway. They also did certain things that made it seem like Trump or other establishment figures, like there's more wiggle room there, or there's more space to just, I don't know, be like a weird fucking chimera. To be a Democrat or a liberal for a little while, at least for people in entertainment, they had to fit a very, very, very particular box. Mm-hmm. And so even just flirting with the other side allows them to just be like a hodgepodge of fucking contradictions, which could be a really lucrative freedom for them.
Bert, you want to read that comment on the screen?
This show is like Saturday morning cartoons for old millennials and Gen X. Who are the only people who will remember.
Pascal, you want to read this comment right here?
Trump gave me DEI reparations as a white male victim. That's the whole point. DEI is straight up reparations for white men.
Do you think that the Snoops and Nellies of the no, let's just say Snoops, because I think Nelly was strictly you's gonna pay me, boss? Like
I think Nelly had somebody who was locked up that he wanted a
really?
pardon. He had somebody affiliated with him who was like a lot,
I
don't quote me on that.
I don't want to doubt the conspiratorial element, but just in general, isn't our socio-political economic standpoint that for anyone who just wants to do any plan to just make more money, the Republican's the person who's going to look the other way while you just like it's not like they're only strategic for one type of plan. It's like if you want to do anything that's just mendacious, like
who Donald Trump that helped in a bind. The richest black man in America, Robert Smith.
Really? What did he do?
He was being investigated for how he made his billions because he was accused of basically being a money laundering vehicle for another white industry executive. And Trump basically made those charges go away.
It sounds like if I'm that high up where I can get next to someone like that, I would love a guy like Donald Trump. Like the problems I'm having right now, I feel like I wouldn't have.
Guess who else is getting favorable attention from Donald Trump?
Who?
Eric Adams.
I saw that.
I saw that.
Nobody wants to get the purse strings cut off at the federal level to keep your state.
Hey, under Trump is talking about pardoning Eric Adams, man.
Damn. It's the meanest shit I've ever seen. Everyone now is diamond and silk. That's the meanest shit.
If he pardons Mayor Adams, I'm gonna have to listen. Like I'm gonna be listening to forever about how he stands for black people because he did that shit.
Oof. He does. This is why this shit is so interesting to me, because I played in the Champagne Room. Nelly's did an interview. Were you with us that night, Bert? Where I played the Nelly interview with Willie D.
Yeah, and Nelly's going like, "What did Trump do?" And he's showing that he knows about like the crime bill, that he knows about several of these other things, and he's just saying like Biden did all of that shit, and I'm supposed to be sucking Biden's fucking toes, but I mean. It wasn't a great argument. He was basically just saying like, it's a wash.
Yeah, the both sides, the whataboutism of kind of like Biden signed the crime bill. What has Trump done?
Yeah, a lot of these cats don't realize like, some of these people fucking suck, but in terms of people building shit, the other people on the ground have federal funds right now. Like the actual money to do shit in a lot of states is being fucking played with. Have you guys seen one person bring up the cost of a Guantanamo holding facility for migrants? Like no one's brought up the cost of that.
I read an article talking about the cost of what it costs per ship per plane to ship back migrants. It's like tens of thousands of dollars.
He's not doing it on commercial flights. Like he's doing it on military flights. He's just the waste that he does in his fucking parade of ridiculousness is insane to me. And I think even with that, and I think Snoop is somewhat cognizant of some of this stuff. I think as he's gotten older, he's trying to be more aware, because you can't get thrown on a lot of these shows constantly and someone asks you a question and you just shizzle your nizzle out of the answer, right? At some point, you have to know what people are talking about. And I think he's somewhat aware of who Donald Trump is.
Of course. How would you explain his reaction in Trump's first election to people performing at Trump's inauguration when he was like, if you perform, you're a gigolo? That's obviously because he realizes that Trump has some racial politics in his background that are adverse to the interests of black people. So he could not be completely and totally oblivious to Trump's racial history.
But I also think he understands, like kind of a lot of us understand, we talk about so much on this show, is that there's a political class of liberal colored folks that also don't give a shit about black people.
There you go.
And also to the topic of has hip hop lost its way? And I put it as it as it becomes just a musical form that anyone can sample, and it just becomes part of the global music palette. And I say as it becomes part of it, but this is years in the making now. Before, what was binding him? It was his role in hip hop and the expectations of what a hip hop artist is supposed to stand for. Now, as the kind of authenticity, the what you have to be a part of this, yeah, people are fighting about it, but I think the kind of open borders approach to hip hop is winning online slowly, if you want, but I think it's winning. I think Snoop is at least tapped in enough to know that, and to know that he doesn't have to maintain his authenticity in this fuck the system type way anymore. If he ever really believed that, I don't know.
I don't even know if he ever really said fuck the system. I don't think he's ever when.
I don't think he said anything more harsh than how'd I put it?
Fuck the police.
He was in a perfect situation where he could be saying like fuck police or fuck this because he had a court case against him. But he might have just been like, fuck them when they come after me.
Yeah. That's how most people are, right?
But yeah, I don't know if you want to call it a downside or not, but the only thing that I can think of that was forcing these, hip hop artists to at least pretend to be against the capitalist status quo was because that was part of that hip hop revolutionary spirit that supposedly hip hop had intrinsically. As you're not expected to do that, as you're not expected to be a part of this lineage or this tradition, regardless of whether or not you ever fucking believed it, we're at a point where you don't even have to have the pretense of it.
Damn, you see this comment, Pascal?
As a former ad man for black agencies, I've been pimping hip hop for white clients for decades. The money and lifestyle, tangible benefits is all it's about.
The hip hop lifestyle is a hell of a lifestyle, man. Gangster's life ain't fun. That very funny bit from one of my favorite movies, Fear of a Black Hat.
That ain't even the fucking hip hop lifestyle anymore. Like, listen to a fucking Future song. The lifestyle is just all sections and pills. It's just chilling.
That sounds like a lot more fun than broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the street and they just don't care.
More fun if you're the dude in that song,
right? 6 in the morning, police at my I don't want to.
Don't listen to a Future song from the woman's perspective. It's not a good time.
Oh, probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, it gets into some things where you actually hear the Rick Ross lyric and you're just like, he's just talking about drugging chicks.
Did I send you that video I watched? There's this guy, Prim Hood, I think it's called, Cinema, and he does these 20-minute recaps on hood movies. And last night he did I saw it for the first time. He did a 20-minute recap on Hustle and Flow. Do you remember how Hustle and Flow ends? It ends with Terrence Howard goes to prison for beating up Ludacris and shooting somebody. And when he gets out, 2 corrections officers walk up to him and they're like, yeah, man, we rappers too. We call 5-0. And they give him a demo tape. And the dude said, this is how Rick Ross got his start.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was I fell the fuck out. I was screaming, laughing in my house at 4 a.m. watching that. Rick Ross is one of those things in hip hop. I'm like, I don't understand why you exist.
Rick Ross's myth is so solid. How do I put it? This again, that whole it doesn't fucking matter anymore because Rick Ross was able to do a diss track against Drake from the standpoint that he was the more authentic person in the space. Nigga, I thought 50 Cent destroyed your credibility and you should just be happy that niggas don't look you up so that they can
fuck you up, right?
Like, just keep making your albums about fucking eating pineapples and being in Miami. Like, shut the fuck up, bro.
He's in the Whoop There It Is video, by the way.
Whoop there, what is the buffet line? Like,
Pascal, do you have anything to say about Rick Ross?
Rick Ross, the boss of the 305, bro, in Miami.
I think you're fine. Unless he's going to call his cop friends on you and you get Tyreek Hill on your way to the fucking doctor's appointment.
Rick Ross is a certified former corrections officer, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What's he going to do? Tell on you? Fuck. How can a genre that's like no snitching have literally a professional snitch in its ranks? Don't understand hip hop. I need you to break this down for me, hip hop. If anyone knows why Rick Ross is not just popular but has a career, and look,
every damn hustling is a banger.
There were cops that rapped. Bert, I know you don't know this group. They weren't that big, but there was a group called, I believe they were called 5-0, and they were cops, and they had a song called P-Ya-Yow, because that was the sound of their billy club beating on a nigga.
P-Ya-Yow.
I don't even think that's the sound it makes. So. I question their credentials right there. I'm not even sure they've beaten that many niggas if that's what they think it sounds like.
Do you remember that group, Pascal?
No, I don't remember the P-Ya-Yow.
P-Ya-Yow. You don't remember that?
I'm just saying, every damn hustling is a tight cut, man.
I'm gonna find it. Hold on. You two talk amongst yourselves for 2 seconds.
I mean, I will also say that like people's actual rap, like their actual biographies as people, for a lot of fans and like rap, like you see this all the time, but people just make up shit about their favorite rapper. They just assume that they have this dope ass background without ever looking it up. That happens all the fucking time.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's just like, you know, unless you were around for the 50 Cent Rick Ross beef, like you probably don't even know about Officer.
I remember Rick Ross got ethered in that beef.
Yeah. And,
but 50 Cent ethered a lot of guys in a lot of beefs.
Yeah, 50 Cent loved that shit. He was doing mixtapes on your beats constantly. Yeah, he welcomed it.
He does. He's one of those guys who welcomes beef. And he said he doesn't. He's like, if beef gets too expensive, I was like, come on, 50. You made kind of your whole career about beefing with cats.
Yeah.
I found it.
What'd you find?
Found it.
Jesus.
It's a real thing. You niggas thought I was making it up. It's a real thing. We can't watch too much of it, but I will show you guys. And that is the name of the song. As you can see, I did not make anything up.
P-yow.
P-yow. Here it is. A rap group of cops that brag about beating niggas.
Oh no, it's them again, him again. You know the boys in blue, 9 squares. Sweet, you never thought that this could be a group of brothers here to snatch back the community. And
there you go. That's all you get.
There's certain moments where you can tell that somebody like they miss. They're only able to see the most surface features. Like these niggas were just like, yo, people love music about like violence. People love about people getting their skulls cracked. I get paid to fucking do violence every day. Like they're gonna fuck with this shit. And then you play the track and they're like, yeah, they weren't talking about you, homie. They don't want to hear about you beating people to fuck up.
Someone says it sounds like a parody. Are you sure it's not just some anti-cop people trying to make cops look lame?
See, that's the most generous interpretation right there.
That is very generous.
It's like a demo of Overseers singing the blues. I mean, it's like,
Someone called them race traitors. Coach looks
Honestly, if
Is this a
shit they have lurking in their head, I'm glad that they betrayed us. I want them out. I don't want to like. Also, all of them had snitch faces. Like,
let's see what the comments say for this. The description has been deleted. Holy shit! This was my group. I am the guy with the long black rain jacket on and mask. We are from Strong Island, New York. Chuck D of Public Enemy put us out. This album was fire. There you go. You guys fucking love Chuck D so goddamn much.
wow.
Cop hop. P-I-yow.
shit's ridiculous.
Someone says era was gold. That wow. Everything is just wow. God bless the 90s. Man, gotta love the 90s. Covered everything. Everything.
Something. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting to have this conversation because, like, or one other thing that's interesting about this conversation is because, like Sexy Red and a lot of these people who just make music that's going to be disposable on TikTok. Like, there are a lot of them out there. You do have a lot of old hip hop heads who now are just kind of showing these kind of conservative or grifting colors or just completely amoral, and they have no care one way or the other. But last year was actually a really strong year for like hip hop albums. Like a lot of rappers who are actually decent lyricists, whether it's like Kendrick Lamar or like Freddie Gibbs and shit, had albums all drop last year. So it was like a pretty satisfying year as a fan of the music. But also,
A lot of old rappers dropped albums too. Don't forget.
Yeah. And people have been there for a minute. I mean, obviously, people have different political feelings about like Killer Mike and whatnot, but like he dropped, Vince Staples dropped, Freddie Gibbs, Tyler the Creator, all these different people were dropping. And at the same time that they're continuing to make music and do more experiments with their albums and whatnot, they don't really participate in any of these debates. And so it's like the Sexy Reds and the other people are attracting a lot of attention. And it does almost kind of feel like the jazz era for me, where it's like, and then these people are just making albums that like, if you really listen to this fucking music, like, that this shit happened, but like no one else gives a fuck.
I think can compare it better to the 70s and the album oriented era of music, because you could just make a record now. Take as long as you want or as short as you want. You can release a song a day. I think. And why do the talking heads need the music people? The biggest talking heads in music don't need to talk to artists,
Particularly in the age of the podcasts.
Yeah. So I think that's another reason why there's a massive disconnect between people like Lil Wayne being involved in some of these discussions. And, these people are smart enough to know I could put a microphone in front of a lot of these cats and they're just going to say some stupid shit.
I mean, Sexy Red, somebody mentioned it, but like Sexy Red, her song with Bruno Mars is like top trending, at least for music videos. I don't know if it is for just sound listening on YouTube, because they don't line up perfectly. But this is something, I don't know if you remember saying this to me, Jason, but you said this shit like a year and a half ago, that somebody like Sexy Red, it's like she's going to get a bunch of features and it will eventually just kind of like vanish. And, I mostly agree with you that you do see a lot of, how do I put it? Older female rappers, not old, but like, they're at the same generation level as like Kendrick Lamar and them, who are getting very savvy to when a Sexy Red or somebody comes along, they give that chick a feature, they get their radio play, and they outlast that more ratchet character. And then a new one comes along, and there's fewer and fewer of these female rappers who do the sexy thing and manage to get to Cardi B or Doja or any of that. They mostly just get the features and then they vanish.
There's a name that everyone leaves off because I think we know her as an actress more, even though she goes by her rap name, which I find so funny. It's Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
Queen Latifah should be the model, right? She goes by her rap name in movies. Nobody calls her Dana unless you know her. Biz called her Dana. All those people called her Dana. And I'm sure for people in her inner circle, it's like, if you call me by my name,
Even though it's
know you, right?
Even though it's misspelled, I still got to call out. Someone did. Yep. Oldie James dropped as well. That was also dope.
It's what I find interesting about the female artist trajectory is it's always feels like Madonna, especially in the modern, let's say in the 80s on, last 40 years, right? You can say all the risque things, do all the crazy risque things, but if you do it well enough and long enough, it'll turn into art, and then you'll be taken very seriously.
I do think Madonna is the model for a lot of it. Also, how do I put it? I'm not saying they did it the best that anyone could do it, but several of the female artists have, I guess, use their comparative freedom because they don't need to be like the hardest motherfucker around. They've used their comparative freedom to get easy access to like things that were like either on the come up and nobody was like paying attention. So Cardi B has had, you know, a ton of Spanish crossover songs and artists since the beginning. You know, been there with Bad Bunny and J Balvin and all them. But then you also have Megan Thee Stallion, who's aware of everything happening on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot. She's aware of the feverish love that like young niggas have for Naruto and Dragon Ball Z and whatnot. So she's just tapped into the Japanese hip hop fan community, dropping references to Jujutsu Kaisen and other things in her song. I'm not saying that they did these crossovers the best, but they've really taken the opportunity to grab what was kind of like easy collab, do shit that other rappers just weren't touching.
Yeah, Megan Thee Stallion was very creative with that, with the Japanese market.
Yeah, she did a long tour, a long promo. She did all these cosplay infused like fits that she was dropping images of like every single day, all throughout a Tokyo tour. But to your point, very, just the Madonna thing of just, you know, a whole marketing storm, really.
Somebody asked when I'm doing a reggaeton episode. That'll be never. The sound that I want to escape most in this world is the sound of reggaeton, because
it's very prevalent where you are.
Oh my God, that's it. That's it.
It's one-dimensional beat.
It hasn't changed. You know, again, and circling back to the original thing, you know, this guy, this Emerald Beats guy, listen to that song. I mean, whether you like the song or not, it's kind of a moot point. I just didn't think it was that cool of a beat. It's all stock sounds. There's nothing that makes it cool other than the over-the-top things that dude is saying and the title of the song. The title of the song was called My Fantasies. Nobody would give a shit. Right?
Reggaeton is big in Miami, man.
It's big fucking everywhere.
I'm in Los Angeles, so I have nothing negative to say about this musical art.
You don't want to get a call to the N-word like I was by a bunch of random brown people.
What is the name of your Latino girlfriend, Bertrand?
That's all private. That's all private. We don't need to know. I only confirm that she is Latino.
He says, fine, let's do Peso Pluma. No, dude. The amount of that shit that I have to go all the way to the bowels of Tijuana to just not hear an endless amount of that music blaring out of somebody's fucking venue.
When you're in the bowels, is that where you get to like the Stetson hat, like Mexican country sound?
No, that's where we get to go to the goth vampire murder bar.
Goth vampire murder bar.
I
I'm
want to keep
still
inviting you to.
surprised that not to derail us, but I'm still surprised by how few people outside of like Mexico or South LA know about like the Hispanic Latin goth rock community, because they throw massive like goth Spanish takeovers in LA bars, like
Bar
Sinister.
Sinister, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a whole clothing company out here called like Los Goths, and all run by like Mexican folks. And it's just like,
Dude,
if you're not in one of these areas, you don't know. And if you're in certain areas like Miami, where it's a very particular type of Hispanic, you might never hear about these people. But it's crazy. It's massive.
it's fucking, that's where me and Ben get all these fucking metal shirts and horror movie shirts. There's a Mexican store in TJ that sells these things for extremely cheap amounts of money. I'm looking right now at my fucking Christian Death shirt that I got over there. Like, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. It's a break from the just getting bludgeoned in the face with reggaeton. It's too much. It's too much, dude.
I'll be right back so the old heads can.
So Pascal,
Yes.
has hip hop lost its way, or did it ever have a way?
I was about to say, what way was it supposed to have that if it's lost in?
Thank you.
I don't think it ever had a way that was supposed to distinguish it as a pop culture music. I mean, it came from different origins. Some say it was supposed to be the music of the revolution. Well, I think we know how we believe about that. Like, there was never going to get a revolution coming out of popular cultural music. I mean, I think hip hop reflects capitalism more than anything else, anyway, right about now.
Does that make you sad, or is it just what it is?
I'm resigning myself to these pop culture. I mean, I resign myself to these art forms, man. I'm beyond the stage where I get it. I mean, I don't like to see the outright coonery.
Mm-hmm.
That really bothers me. But in terms of being about that cheddar, that's just the norm.
When was the last time you listened to a rap album in its entirety?
Oh, a whole album?
Mm-hmm. You know, maybe on a streaming service, whatever.
Oh, Doechii.
Ah, what do you think of Doechii?
I like Doechii. I like Doechii a lot. She's got talent.
Yeah.
That cut Nissan Ultima is hot.
Yeah, Bert's back. Bert.
I didn't know Pascal was on it like that. Yeah, Doechii is like eating up right now. Like
She's got a PR campaign that's out of this fucking world.
Yeah, and she's like, what's the word? She's getting studied for that PR campaign, like right now, because she dropped the album, the PR campaign happened, and then she redid the campaign with like new music videos and styles and shit like that. She did it twice.
She's an interesting model of the forward thinking of before, and you guys probably don't know this. You couldn't even send stuff to press if you didn't have a 6-month advance on it. Like if you had a PR company, they would be like, okay, when's your record coming out? You have to sit down and have a whole conversation about when is it supposed to come out? What is it going to be about? We're going to send this to these people right here and blah, 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 blah. There was a whole thing before you even released you're still recording your record, and you have to send stuff to companies. They wouldn't even look at your stuff if you didn't have at least maybe 10 years ago, they're like, okay, 3 months maybe. And you had to have tour dates. So a lot of things had to be lined up for anyone to even start reviewing your stuff. And if you dropped it and it didn't hit, they weren't going to talk about it again because it already came out. So the fact that Doechii can drop something, not have all this advance notice, come back and do stuff, and have all this popularity, it's really showing that all these things that we used to feel that we had to do in the industry, they're dead. The internet has just changed everything. I think for the better in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, Doechii is a positive in a lot of ways because it seems really creative. She's got she raps well. Like she can put together
telling stories, man.
Yeah, she can put together a fucking song. The visual performance and all that is really cool. There is a part of me that I guess I'm just prone to being a reductive piece of shit and being like, we have also been missing the weird girl rapper for a little while. A few people tried to take that spot. We haven't had that. So
Who do you think tried to take it before her?
They tried to put on a few different people to be like the alternative. Like there was Tarawak,
Missy Elliott.
Missy Elliott obviously had it. She did it. She succeeded in that role. She created a fucking template. After her, different people have, flirted with the idea of being that out there, or that futuristic, or that forward thinking. But nobody had really people have struggled to solidify it. Basically trying to.
Does she feel like she's like put together in a lab though? And then I'm not saying this as a knock on her because I find her extremely entertaining, but she's a theater kid. I believe she plays some instruments.
Probably.
Or
I mean, that's
because the musicality is great in the music. The presentation of the videos is great. It feels like they're less art projects, like Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, whatever he's going by now. Everything he does feels like an art project that you watch one time and that's it. A video of his is MoMA shit. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I just don't know. But watching the Doechii stuff, it's like I can watch this Family Matters video a million times in a row and it's still funny and entertaining and the songs are great.
Something that comes up out of the many things that you and Pascal both mentioned is the performance arts kids are like fucking, they crush it when they're involved in hip hop and rap, because compared to a lot of people, compared to these kids who aren't listening to the soul music, who don't have the R&B, who aren't listening to like all these different genres, they just have more material. They have more to create from. And there's a lot of segments of rap where it's like, I can tell that you grew up strictly listening to other rappers. It's the same as, it's how cliches. I don't have the art, the critical art theory fucking language, but it's those things that become cliche in movies because one movie did it and maybe it was based off some semblance of a real experience. And then the next movie never had that experience, but it copies it from a movie and it copies and it copies until eventually it becomes this parody where you have like scenes in action movies where like the bad guy is throwing a dart into like the hero's face that they keep on a fucking picture, or everybody's always opening with the dossier type shit. It says, has a problem with authority. But eventually, it's just shit that you only think anything is like that because it's a movie referencing a movie. Rap, for a lot of these people who are coming up through the internet, it's like when they list out all of their influences are other rappers, which is cool on one hand. But if you had asked Andre, somebody mentioned Andre 3000, if you asked Andre 3000 who his influences were, they would not have just been in black music. And that made his music better.
Yes. Pascal, what say you to that?
I agree to that because those guys always had a wide breadth of music they listened to.
Well, also, too, if we think about the quote unquote golden era of hip hop, what makes De La Soul, popular and sellable is the fact that they're not just sampling James Brown, right? They're supposed to be the Beatles of hip hop, bringing in the Daisy Age, sampling Hall & Oates, or as people have been saying in the comments, Holland Oates and Steely Dan. So this has been going on for a while. And I don't understand why people act like some goofy white kid saying he doesn't like. I think what it is a goofy white kid saying something that goofy white people will say in hip hop, and then people that feel they haven't gotten to that level go, "This isn't fair." And that's what it always comes off like to me. Like, why are you mad? I don't give a shit what that fucking kid has to say. I don't give a shit what fucking Post Malone says. Who the fuck gives a shit about Post Malone?
An idiot?
Sure. Don't care.
Yeah, like a fucking idiot.
There's so much. People live in their own bubble so much right now. I don't understand why one thinks that someone like Post Malone or Emerald Beats, who again, I feel very confident that most people watching this show right now had no idea who he was. Did you know who made that beat for "Slut Me Out"?
I don't look up who makes the fucking
Thank
beats.
you.
If I was a fucking rapper, I would be one of these people who says, like, I've been listening to rap my whole life, but I actually need somebody to break out a metronome and tell me what space the bar is supposed to fit in. Because I've never looked this shit up. I don't fucking know. Got no idea.
I mean, there used to be a thing where the producer, especially in the 90s, it was like, oh, who did Pete Rock produce this?
Oh, that was the age of the big producer.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was like a thing.
You will still hear that for, like, if your name is somebody like P Rock, if your name is somebody like Rick Rubin or whatever, people can sell off your name alone. But how many people are fucking producers now? That's like being
that's what hip hop found out, right? This is all about capitalist production. Once SoundCloud becomes a thing and being Pete Rock is aspirational, I'm just going to put my music up there for free. Anyone who wants to use it can use it. Okay, I'm just going to use it. And you get SoundCloud rappers. That's what a lot of that shit was. Oh, I found some beat. You're going to use it.
I am worried about, you know, how this ossification, how do I put it? I agree with the shit that you guys had said that, like, I don't think that hip hop, you know, there was this clear way that we could say was the hip hop way that has now been lost. I don't think that shit was ever that firmed up and homogenous. It's reached the point where even in its latest iteration has been around for a while. You got rappers who are just listening to other rappers and recycling themselves. At least if you're talking about like the male rappers, the female rappers whose identity leaves room for a little bit more flexibility while still being deemed authentic. They're branching out. But, you know, I worry about how policing this boundary so hard and saying like, no, it has to be authentic Black shit. It has to be authentic Black American shit. I wonder how that's going to pan out going into the future, because it's like the rap is not going to get better unless everybody starts pulling from more sources and being exploratory. But it's going to be hard to do that after you spent like the last decade saying that like nobody should explore Black music. Like I wonder about the bind these people are going to find themselves in if they don't get rid of that and start fucking experimenting broadly and saying experimenting is still a part. You can experiment and still be a fucking hip hop artist. It's not, oh, I experimented, so now my music goes under the fucking house collection. It's like, Jesus Christ, like the shit that people in rock got to experiment with and they were still rock musicians was like so fucking wide. In hip hop, you do anything slightly weird and now you're in a completely different Grammy fucking category.
Well, let's remember one of the greatest hip hop songs of all time to win a Grammy with, I think, the best hook of all time.
You gonna say that? Is it Macklemore? You're gonna say fucking Macklemore?
No. Did he win a Grammy for a movie?
Oh, he won a Grammy for an album.
Yeah, no, fuck that guy. Whoop that trick.
That was Hustle and Flow, right?
Yeah. Whoop that trick. Put that song on while you're doing anything, folding clothes, washing dishes,
whooping tricks.
Whoop it. You really gonna kick the shit out of somebody if that's, I'm sure when Bert's lifting weights, Whoop That Trick is in the rotation.
NLE Choppa in the UK. That's what's on.
It's not Whoop That Trick?
It varies sometimes, but not. NLE Choppa in the UK, just saying the most ignorant gangster shit. Just, yeah.
Worse than Whoop That Trick? That's the hook.
Yeah, I'm trying to hear about like stabbing niggas and leaving them pissy. Like that's.
You're not really trying to whoop any tricks?
Huh? I'm not even a big fan of whooping tricks. Once I found out that being a pimp wasn't cool, like when I'm watching Kill Bill when I'm little and whatnot, I'm thinking, you know, being a pimp looks like a pretty cool job. You dress nice. You're around all these. Like, this seems like a cool crime. Then you find out
how it really works. Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
That movie, Pascal, have you seen Hustle and Flow?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Did you cry at the end?
No, I was traumatized by that.
by Terrence Howard, man, or were you traumatized by what the subject matter, or what traumatized?
I got so many accolades. I was like, This is a pimp movie.
It is. It is a pimp movie. It's a movie about a pimp aspiring to be more than just a pimp. He's aspiring to be a successful pimp rapper.
Rapping about pimp shit.
And he loses his hoes in the process. He loses his hoes. He finds love for one of his hoes.
First mistake would be out being a pimp, you know.
You would think there's a lot of mistakes in that. There's a lot of mistakes in that movie, man.
Have you seen The Deuce? Any part of that?
No.
I haven't completed it, but just the first like 3 or 4 episodes that feature the pimps, like the pimp shit is fucking harsh. Like the mind games they show the pimps playing, how they treat like it is damn, it's like fucked up. Yeah. Really gets in there.
I mean, it's a gross industry, and that movie, more so than the Mac, humanizes it in this way that you're extremely sympathetic. And the hero's journey, is it Terrence Howard or is it Taryn Manning, who becomes a successful sex worker at the end? Remember, she's fucking everybody in radio to get whooped that trick on the radio. And that's how they come up.
That is some people's come up.
And for some people, they're like, what a happy ending. He gets out of prison and he does like the fist in the air, like fucking Judd Nelson at the end of fucking Breakfast Club.
Terrence Howard's a fucking trip, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But after watching that Prim Hood Cinema recap of that movie, it was pretty fucking hilarious. Because I remember watching it thinking to myself, am I watching what I think I'm watching? Because I didn't know what it was. And I kept asking it, kind of like you, Pascal. I kept going, is this what I think I'm watching? Is this supposed to be like a humanizing story of a pimp that just, I guess, can't keep his women in check? Because remember Paula Jai, what's her name? Parker? Paula Jai Parker, is that her name? The real cute woman that was Ice Cube's girlfriend in Friday.
Which one? The one with like lots of gas between her teeth?
Yeah, damn, you really hitting below the belt there, Bert.
Nah, listen, I grew up seeing like Gina fucking Gershon and Showgirls, so those gaps in the side teeth, I'm about it.
Did you see the balloon pop video where the dude looked at the chick with the gap in her teeth and they said, why did you pop a balloon? He said, because she got a gap in her teeth and I know what that mouth do.
I didn't see that. But when I say the gaps in the teeth, that was not an insult. I was about her when I saw Friday.
Oh, so you were saying that the gaps in the teeth, or that's when you know, much like that man on the balloon pop show.
That slightly like almost like you look like a shark, slightly predatory. I appreciate that. It shows a certain appetite.
Sean Moon says Gina Gershon. Oh my. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me and discussing hip hop today. I think hip hop never had a way to lose in the first place. And no one should give a shit about what marginal producers have to say about anything. It's just, so what? He doesn't want to sample soul music. There is probably 10,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify as we speak of rappers sampling soul music with boom bap beats that you can listen to. And I'm sure their age ranges vary from 15 to 58. So it's out there if you want it. Pascal, do you have any closing remarks?
I appreciate this ability for us to talk about the golden age of hip hop compared to today's technical productivity and production.
Bert, do you have anything really cool to say? Also, we have to shout out Bert's fucking jacket shirt combo. That's kind of off the hook. I saw what you did there. You were like, ha ha.
This is a favorite jacket and a favorite shirt. So
Oh yeah, I said, ha ha.
I think that I would end on a sad note. For me, I don't think hip hop had one definitive way in the past, but I do think it had a lot of a lot of elements that I thought were really great, that I cherished a lot, and that I think have mostly given away to just the most commercial elements of capitalism, and that what there is to like about this beyond just enjoying the way it hits your ear, or if you're like me, the solipsism of hearing stories that remind you of your uncles, other than just that self-indulgence or that distraction, it offers less and less.
Take that, Pascal. He said 2 more bigger words than you. You want to out big word him? Too late.
There you go.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, everybody. Remember, Tuesday, Kayfabe drops on Means TV. I'm really excited. If you guys watch it, make sure you share it. Hope it gets to a gajillion views, and maybe I can make $47. So
didn't I loan you $47 once? So I'm hoping that too.
I've been trying to have you come down here, and for $47, I can take you and your missus out to a nice steak dinner.
Now I want you to pay inflation prices. You come up here.
God damn it.
You and I are going to spend $60 to split an avocado toast.
That's why I literally don't go up there for that reason. I can't. I can't afford it, Pascal. Can't afford your American life. I was in America for a few hours, and I spent more trying to get in and out of that country than I spend all week on eating. I didn't eat in the States because it's too expensive. I can't afford your prices. Had I not been on the guest list for that show, nope. America is the country of the rich. It's not for me.
Whatever, fucking gentrifier down. Nigga talking all this good shit. You learned everything you needed to about gentrification in the fucking Bay, and you then
I imported it down here.
And you think it's okay because you know how to introduce yourself in Spanish.
I totally do. You know how I got home? My Uber driver taking me to the border. He was like, "Oh man, I could drive you closer if you want." I said, "Are you done driving for the night?" He goes, "Damn man, it's like 1:30. Yeah, I am. He goes, "You want me to just drive you?" So he just drove me through. It was fucking awesome. I didn't have to walk that. Did I ever show you the video of what it's like to walk across at like 2:00 in the morning?
No.
It's fucking frightening. I'll show you the video. It's fucking frightening. It is frightening.
I'm imagining the scene from them walking across in fucking No Country for Old Men, just ominous as shit.
Yes. It is fucking frightening. And I'm trying to look cool like I'm not scared. I'm sure trying to look cool, I was just like, all right, guys. We are
Out.
Later.